Okay, hello there. My name is Angel Serrato. This is assignment 2, messenger for CSC 376, distributed systems. This is me talking about my Python script and how I handled that particular assignments. So initially here, this block of code you see is me instantiating the server import based off the command line arguments that we got from the script files, as well as creating our server and client sockets to handle messages. So here, option and args are two variables created to handle the command line arguments that we get from the files, as well as checking for option L. We're going to create a server, and we're going to assign it to be whatever our argument is of index 1 or second element of the arguments. If there are actually arguments present, because if not, this else statement means that we're going to hard code server to be localhost. We also create the port to be the intcast of arguments index 0, which means the first element of the arguments, if there actually are command line arguments present. And then we're going to set the default timeouts of all sockets to be 3. Here, this if else tree is going to create our server sockets and our client sockets. We're checking to see if the -l option is available within the command line arguments, because if it is, we know that our script is going to create a server socket. So this is the code to create a server socket. We're creating a TCP socket here. Where this set sock op is taken from the code examples that are available in D2L. Essentially, this makes it reusable. We're binding the server socket to server imports that we instantiated earlier. We have a listen statement to check for incoming connections, as well as creating the client socket, and is addressed based off information of the server socket where we accept it. Else, if we don't see the -l present in our command line arguments or options, we're going to create a client socket. So this is the to create the client socket. So essentially the same socket creation that we see in server socket. So we're going to create the client socket. We're going to use a .sock opt to make it reusable, as well as connecting it based off the server and the port that we instantiated earlier. So with that, depending on our script, we created a server socket or a client socket. Here we're going to print messages and close the sockets. So this is kind of the meat of my code, the bulk of my code. We're creating a thread. Targets, it's going to be a send messages function, which I'm going to talk about later. We're starting the thread. I have a while true structure here in order to get our client to receive the messages from the server, and actually make sure that the message is valid. So we have a try statement here. Message is going to be our client socket that we receive of 1024 bytes. So this is the size of the message. If the message did not go through, if the connection was broken, for example, or just null, we're going to break. If the F statement doesn't fire, then we're going to print our message. We're going to decode it, because in our send messages function, which I'll talk about later, we encode it. So we're going to print the message decoded. If we get an exception, we're going to break and print out just break from the true statements. We're going to join the thread. So join the thread after messages are sent and messages are received. If we create a server socket, which means that if we saw the -l in our command line arguments, we're going to close that server socket. We're going to close the client socket, and then we're going to exit out of our program. So this is my send messages function. We're handling the incoming messages from the server. So very similar structure to the way I have here. It's a try structure. While true, we're getting a message that we're reading in from sending our input from the file. We're reading line by line, and then we're sending it from the client to a server, and all messages are encoded. If the message is not available or is not valid enough to read from, we're going to break. And then we have this exception here, just purely from my end, just for troubleshooting, just making sure that the messages actually get sent properly. And then this last statement is just to run our main method, so our script actually runs and works. And this is just testing to see if the script works. So I tested beforehand just to make sure that it does work, but just on video, it passes test 1 and it passes test 2, both for client server connections with only a single message within the files, as well as server client connections with multiple messages, which will happen shortly. Yep, there you go, 10 points. So yeah, this is my script. Thank you so much for watching.